Hello, today is November 28th, 2018. This is the standard kubeadm office hours. We're pretty light on agenda because we are heading into the end of release cycle. I don't know if we want to get into planning yet, other than to maybe have like high-level items to discuss. We'll probably get into planning maybe next week or maybe even post KubeCon, because KubeCon is a good place to discuss planning. So I'm sure if we were to have any plans going into KubeCon, we would probably take those plans and burn them right after KubeCon. So with that in mind, let's go through the agenda. First topic I had was, are there any 113 items that folks are aware of or tracking currently that we need to address?
Not to my knowledge. I think we are good.
Yeah, I haven't gotten any pings, so that's usually a good sign.
We only have one typo in the docs, in the Go docs, that has to be fixed. But it's not a big problem because we can even fix it after the branch is separated. The problem is that people are currently testing and they see the typo. But yeah, Fabrizio is assigned to this. He can merge it, I guess.
Yeah. This release kind of highlighted the common pattern that we currently have. We should probably, I know we kind of wait till the end of the release because we've been constantly churning both the command line as well as the configuration file. But I think in next release, as we start to talk about prioritization later on, we can probably do that earlier in the cycle because there should be less churn, I'm hoping, praying. But it looks like there's not a lot there. The next agenda item, and Lucas, you're here, that I put on the list was the blog post. If there are things that folks wanted to highlight, and also to raise awareness. So if you work for a company and you're contributing to kubeadm, we should get on the blog train. So that way when the upstream blog goes out, other companies can toot their own horn for contributions to kubeadm going GA.
Yes, that's a very common pattern. So like we get this out, and if you wonder about the last, we have a kind of table, and directly I want to mention that the criteria or whatever that I've put easily now is just like those who are in the reviewers, the owners files. We have a lot of other great contributors as well, but we can't list like 150 people. But at least the companies, some of the companies that are there, it would be great if those or coordinated the blog posting, so they had a similar, I don't know, this is what we've helped with, or Heptio, WeWorks, I don't know, other companies, VMware, Google maybe, we'll see.
I think the link is not correct in the doc. Who put it there?
I haven't seen the doc yet. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, somebody dropped the wrong link in there. But if folks can review it and add their comments, I think that would be helpful. I already went through and added a bunch of comments, and I saw that Luke had made a bunch of modifications. I'll go through and review it again, probably in a day or two. I'm kind of working on slides currently.
I mean, the book is pretty good already. Thank you, Lucas. I don't know if others have some comments. We can wait a little bit more. So it has to be released it has to be ready on the 2nd of December. Is that right?
Yes.
Well, there's
preferably before, but yeah.
So that's Sunday. So probably we have a couple of days, like the 29th and 30th of November, for more comments, and we should pretty much lock it down for the weekend, probably, unless you have something to add there. I guess my point is that probably nobody is going to help with comments during the weekend.
All right. Yeah, definitely. I can buy then, maybe Saturday evening or something. My time, I can lock it.
Yeah. And are you going to send the PR or is it Caitlin?
It's handled by the. All right. Are we doing PRs to the blog now as well? Do
Yes.
the authors need to do that, or earlier it's?
What I've seen is it's either the author. To my understanding, is if the blog post is work in progress, the author sends the PR. But if the book is pretty much ready, it's Caitlin who sends the PR, and also it's she who addresses further comments and copy edits and stuff.
Right.
So basically, yeah, you can ask her.
I'll ask her how she wants to do it. Anything in general to comment that should be or should not be in the?
Tim, you promised that we can get some like marketing people in there to spice it up or something.
I already went through and did my first pass. I can now loop in some other folks. I already did that on the first doc, and I took some of their suggestions. Sometimes marketing people can go a little overboard, so you have to make sure you proofread that first, because this is like community blog, so they're yeah. So I will loop in the folks like right after this meeting.
Yeah, in terms of VMware, to my understanding, we are going to have a mention. So we have some sort of a collective block of all the SIG activities in 113, and there's going to be a mention about this, like a paragraph of kubeadm GA. To my understanding, they didn't want us to make an official block, but maybe after the release, I can convince my office to make a block about it.
Well, we'll have to figure that out later on. Like I technically cannot coordinate with you yet.
Yes.
But I will. I already have some contact information of who to contact as soon as the close is done, and I'll start with a blog post, and if anything, I can do a private blog, and then just mention accolades and stuff, and do my own Twitter sphering stuff.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments, complaints, concerns on the blog? If you get a chance, please review. The link is in the meeting notes. That'd be useful. Next up on the list, Chuck, the longstanding funsies of packaging.
Yeah. This is just coming up because I've been doing a bit of research and work in the release department, and I've seen some PRs going through, and Jason has one out to try to keep our Kubernetes Debian and RPM packaging builds up to date with Kubernetes release. And I gotta say, I think that the code in release is becoming mostly version checking at this point, which gets confusing and is highly error prone. And I would love to, at some point, like obviously I would love to switch over to using the Bazel build. But until then, I guess I'm kind of curious why we are maintaining the packaging in Kubernetes.
So I can speak for myself and why I fixed up the build RPMs target. And it was mainly out of personal ease of use. It's easier to deploy the packaging for testing rather than, install an older version and deal with binaries and have to deal with kind of drift for, some of the other ancillary config files and things like that. So it streamlines the development workflow to have those functional.
So,
gotcha. So it is in use in some way, even if it's not for production use.
I didn't want to get into too much planning for the next cycle, but there's one thing that I definitely want to do for the next cycle. I want to kill Kubernetes Anywhere with Fire. And we have the PRs to get Ansible, the kubespray stuff in place, that would be fine and dandy, and they can use the artifacts that are published out of the mainline as part of the CI system. In the new world order, we'll have to figure out what priorities are. We were spread very thin. I think in coming inbound in the next quarter, we will probably have a little bit more latitude to pay down the tremendous amount of upstream technical debt that currently exists with regards to CI automation.
Yeah, and to also, sorry, to answer your question, Jack, it basically exists because we want to migrate to Bazel.
Yeah.
But then we have the problem that it isn't multi-architecture. At least not what I think last time I checked. There's some problems with that. So hence we had to do the old school, our own homegrown stuff, which is really hacky, and I don't like it at all. It's awful, but well, it's good with Bazel, and why I want to use it, and why we're in fact using it right now in our CI testing. But that's the only place it's used, and it's like stuff like this, the CNI version that I on the debs and RPMs I found today were the wrong tag. So stuff like that isn't breaking anything, or isn't breaking our builds, but they're still wrong because too few eyes.
So are you just building these, or are you actually using them to install?
I'm consuming them. So the good part of the Bazel stuff is that it builds very fast when you send a PR, and they have a script locally that can fetch kubeadm and all the artifacts from a PR because they're uploaded to GCS. So it's like just pull down, and that's why we're also doing for the now kubeadm Kubernetes Anywhere that we're gonna use them later. But like we want to have the Bazel, we want to migrate and make that the official thing.
Yeah.
We can't follow release builds.
Yeah, there's some issues with the Bazel stuff. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, if it's helping people, that's totally fine to maintain in a worthwhile endeavor. I just wanted to make sure that was something we were clear on.
Yeah, I'll talk to Jeff. We're basically like every KubeCon or something.
Yeah,
we've been in the same place where we should fix this Bazel multi-arch stuff. But
I know Liz was as well. Yeah.
So it gets weird in that like the build artifacts are all published from. We can decouple this problem. I think that there's been like this. The fact that Bazel is generating the specs, I think, is a anti-pattern. You can easily have the build artifacts being published as and the specs and the deb files separate, similar to how the release repository works, but less weird, right? So that way you can just have the building of the packages all come from a canonical source without coupling it into the build system itself, right? So that can totally be done, and I don't know why. We've kind of circled the drain wanting to have Bazel rule the universe, and it's not going to, so let's stop doing this. And we can, if we decouple the generation of the spec and the RPM files, to have like a canonical, spec and deb files. If we decouple that, we can just do it today. There's nothing that prevents us from doing that.
And I think that's kind of the biggest point I found when looking at this is the build is coupled with the release, and that needs to be separated, I think.
And that's super easy to do. Like that's not even hard.
So do you mean for CI, or like do you mean that any CI commit should be able to be released? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Technically.
Yeah, the last bit is the actual buckets, but you should be able to produce artifacts, all the artifacts, right, for every arc from the main repository. And you can do that today. It's just that the problem we currently have is the coupling in the main repository. And if we decouple that, we're good. There's nothing that prevents us doing it.
So today in CI we do only build, right? When you send a PR, we do only build. But you want it to do what?
You can build all the artifacts, including the RPMs and temp packages, as a separate step, right? Like you could do it as a separate step. You could have a script that is able to do it from whatever. There's like a million ways to do this. I think we just need to assign somebody to go and decouple it, because currently it's generated from Bazel, and if you just get rid of that, that will solve most of the problems. And I think we need to fix all the upstream tooling that cares about this stuff, but that's
okay. So you mean that today in CI when I send a PR, it's gonna do both Bazel. But first, Bazel is going to build my binaries, then it's also going to build the debs and RPMs. But you mean that that's wrong, because it should only build the binaries and then optionally, as a separate decoupled step, build packages for any binaries.
exactly. Like I can run RPM build on any spec file anywhere, and I did that all the time, you know. And that there, as long as we have a location, relative path location for where to subsume the binaries, that there are other artifacts, doesn't matter where they came from. If they were built from A or B, it shouldn't matter. As long as I have a relative path location for how to slurp that data in, that doesn't matter. And then that packaging step is totally decoupled.
Okay.
That's a pretty easy thing to do. It's not hard.
Yeah. We'll I don't know, add that to the cycle, I guess. Or like the next cycle goals.
And should we start investigating like the container option for distributing?
We had one. I wanted to have like one single meta container to rule them all, and just put all of the packages and metadata required to distribute said packages inside of a single container, and then it would just be a container artifact build. I think I lost that battle because a while ago everyone still wanted the canonical packages. That's the way most people consume it, right?
Yeah, that's an ecosystem problem. Yeah, we have to, even if we come up with something different, we still have to keep the old legacy way of distributing because people just want it.
Exactly.
So I wanted to make a comment about something earlier, like destroying Kubernetes anywhere. Kubespray, in my opinion, can be like a separate effort, but I think we should focus on kind, unless there's something that I'm missing here.
I want to make, here's my grand vision. Get rid of 90% of what is on PR blocking jobs and have kind be the one PR blocking job. And cops should be periodic. Get cops out of there because it's like a waste of everybody's time. It flakes all the time. And then if kind is on PR blocking, then every single PR would be a vet for kubeadm.
Yes, and also, I mean, the proposal there was to move some of these code-specific jobs to post-submit instead of periodic. But yeah, I mean, we for kind, Fabrizio currently is working with Ben to be able to create multiple nodes and also, to my understanding, multi-clusters at the same time. But with the multi-node support and HA, stuff like that, we can also test a lot of things. And the big plus here, in my opinion, the big plus here is that we drop cloud providers from the end-to-end jobs because we can run it inside Docker. We can run the entire container inside Docker.
So
yeah. I think we're still going to have periodics for cloud providers. I don't think there's any way to escape that eventuality. But I think for PR blocking, I think we should absolutely get cloud providers out of PR blocking, because it is the single largest source of flakes and angst in the contributor world. It takes forever. You have to /test/retest/retest over and over and over again. It's not fun.
With regards to the cloud provider, we already have some, like, we don't use it in all places, but in most, yes, because most are running on GCE. So using kubeadm and all that stuff. So yes, I do agree with kind being the thing.
We have a tracking issue for that currently. We should like have one umbrella issue for like, here are all the test automation things we want to do, and kind being one of them, for the switching of kind being into PR blocking being one of them.
I wonder how to name this particular issue.
I can open one today and we can create a checklist of all the issues the things we want to fix.
Yeah, you can also add Fabrizio, who can link some of his current work with Ben.
Sounds good.
I mean, eventually we can also, I was thinking about this, like in terms of LTS and stuff like that, we can also have like jobs that pretty much do incremental updates from 1.15 to 1.18 or something like that. And if, of course, if kind allows us to do that, we can like pretty much test complete upgrade paths for LTS.
It sounds a little unicorny, but we'll deal with that when we get there. I know kind is still still has some issues that we need to resolve first, but it has a lot of promise for sure. The next on the list was, I don't know if it's been 3 months officially yet, but I wanted to promote Lubomir to approver and see if anyone has if anyone wants to thumbs up or any other questions, comments, complaints, concerns.
Thumbs up for me.
I think you've done an awesome job, Lubomir. It's been highly appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah. Actually, we could write it down, or I could write write the plus downs down there, so they're documented. Yeah, this is on YouTube as well, but
I mean, I should send a PR after the release, probably.
yep.
Okay.
Or you can send it now, and it will just get merged in 5 days.
Yeah, so standard pattern for approvers too is that obviously anything that's nascent or simple to understand and that everyone would agree to, just go ahead. Anything that touches config or workflow, we should usually discuss amongst other approvers. Like Lucas and I and Fabrizio never do anything unilaterally. It's almost always converse if we agree upon this is the flow that we need to go forwards with.
Yes, I maintain a fairly large project, and that's the same pattern that we follow. I never merge something on my own opinion unless it's something like a typo fix or something very simple.
Right. Very well. Yeah, I'm super confident that's going to work out real well.
Next up, Lucas, you want to open up Pandora's box and talk about configuring all the things.
Yes, I just wanted to mention it. Like, I don't know. Oh, well. Now I obviously pasted the wrong link as well. Sorry. It's migrated. What I wanted to say was that it's been migrated to real cap proposal. And that's now in Kubernetes community, up for review. It's on a high level, just to touch really quickly on it. We have a lot of code in kubeadm that we've written manually, or so to say manually in a somewhat standard way and somewhat kubeadm only way. So there are things that don't exist with regards to component config today in a generic place. So we write this code in kube scheduler, kube proxy, kubelet, and the kube controller manager, and in kubeadm. And it's written kind of in the same way, but there are a lot of deviations. So for example, the kube controller manager doesn't even have the config flag. It can't load, but it can do just the internal conversions. kubeadm can load multiple versions, even multiple YAML documents. Now also with strict checking. So if you specify the field that is not present in the schema, it's going to send you a warning. Lubomir contributed that, and it's going to be, with this proposal, also formalized into a real codec and stuff. So there's next to no testing on component config. kubeadm is the only one that has this, because I wrote this like own framework for kubeadm for testing round trip and defaulting and stuff. So this is an attempt to formalize all this and make it generally usable. So the requirement is that it must be usable for Kubernetes, must not have anything that is not specific, that is not needed to Kubernetes components, and it must be used by all Kubernetes components. So not every piece, but something. So like if a component implements component config, which every component should do, it should consume this standard set of code. This makes it much easier to write cluster API controllers, to move cloud providers out, to move kubeadm out. It's a prerequisite for moving kubeadm to its own repository, etc., etc., etc. So it's long overdue. Like we've needed this 2 years, 3 years already. But
so like Mike Denise wrote, here's my biggest problem with this. It's not that we don't agree upon it or that's not a good thing to do or anything like that. Mike Denise wrote the original component config proposal like literally 2 years ago, right? Like the original very beginnings of this stuff. And the problem is that the API machinery approval process and getting that through API machinery just died because it's API machinery. So the question is, like, how do we make sure that this is successful in this cross-functional group? It almost needs like a dedicated working group to execute on this, that it includes people who can approve things on API machinery, as well as people from this SIG who are interested to partake in that endeavor. Because if we do it just from within the SIG, unless we start to like percolate approval ACLs all throughout that stuff, it will be in this weird state, right?
Yes, with regards to owners, so this will be a new staging repo. The code from various places, from the kubelet, from kubeadm, from API machinery, and from API server where we host some of the stuff now, will be all aggregated into K-Layer components. Top-level approvers proposed will be the approvers of SIG Cluster Lifecycle and SIG API machinery, as well as the top-level approvers of all the things. Reviewers will follow pretty closely as well. The packages that move will have all their owners files preserved. But the only API types that will be in this repo, like types Go files, will be the structs that are shared between components configs. So for example, how to connect to an API server, like a Kubernetes client that is super generic and used by nearly every Kubernetes component. That is a thing that is in this shared components repository. And in order to make changes there, you need from the API approvers owners team. Does that answer your question? And with regards to working group, yes, I'll see what we can do there. I hope to get it like that. I'm not sure I can, at least not myself, lead it or bootstrap it myself right now when in the military. In a half a year I can, but not at the moment. So, but if we get some other folks that can help co-chair at least, I'm definitely on the train. I'm like committing to try to make this possible.
It would be nice.
14, 15.
I can almost guarantee you Red Hat will like look from the sidelines and will help review things, but they will probably not throw down. I'm like almost 100% guarantee that. But from a Google side of the house, do we have any Googlers that can get involved here?
Yeah, so I've written this. So the only, with regards to code creators, there's one from Red Hat, Stefan Szymanski, that I've written the proposal with.
I'm sure he'll help, like he'll review, but is
Yeah.
he actually going to write the code?
He also writes code, yes.
No, I know he writes code. I'm saying like this is not from a Red Hat perspective, knowing how OpenShift works. They're not going to really care about this. They're not going to do this, right? Like this, OpenShift has its own configuration mechanism, which is a grand unified config, right?
So some of that's changing with OpenShift version 4. So they may care more about OpenShift or the component config for that. Because OpenShift version 4 actually is supposed to deploy OpenShift on top of Kubernetes.
Okay.
Anyway, from the Google side, we have Mike Torfen.
But he's split like 3 ways typically.
Yeah. I'll talk to Robert if we can find more. I don't know at the moment, but we have also, so last time I did this component config thing in 1.12, the initial refactoring with the repo splits and all that, which was a prerequisite. Here, we actually had a lot of Chinese contributors, and this time I've also gathered some. And also DIMS, I think, is going to help out, or from what he said. So that is also a strong contributor.
In terms of the order of what components we move out, did you decide like what is the first one that we should do?
So I have the implementation order thing, or like prioritization there, yes. But after this is merged, I'm gonna make up a more detailed action plan, which will follow like, yeah, API service last. Definitely. This is like, I'm not gonna even touch the API server before like we've done all the other components that have it already. Yeah. But
it probably should be first, but yeah.
I don't mind helping out. I know I haven't actually helped out with a project. I've just helped out on random things. That would be interesting.
Cool. Perfect. I'll add you to the list then. That sounds really cool. Yeah. So with all this in mind, yeah, the only reasonable thing would be a working group. So I'll talk with the others and see if we can make that happen with one more meeting time and stuff. But yeah,
or we can always
that sounds really cool. Thank you, Merrick.
If we don't want to do a formalized working group, if we can have other people attend this meeting periodically, we can do that too as well, and carve out a piece of this, because obviously kubeadm is super dependent upon this effort.
Yes, it really is, and like obviously that's part of also like I'm very excited about doing this for Kubernetes health as a whole, but yes, it directly contributes to the health of kubeadm long term as well, because we don't want to carry a lot of extra stuff that we do now, and we want the other components to work as they should. So yeah, that was like a heads up. There's a lot of information in that proposal, indeed. And feel free to comment, please, if you have any concerns, comments, things that need clarification, etc.
Yeah, so last night I had a look at how I can write a custom codec for the streak on Marshall, and I saw things that I cannot unsee. But it's all right. I'm going to try to get this working. So actually, the approach we currently have in kubeadm is sufficiently better than what has to be done for universal codec to be strict. It's kind of, yeah, but we might get it done like in a month or so. I'm not sure. Maybe I should ask like for opinions instead of sending like a random PR. But anyway, that's another topic.
Yes. And with regards to that, I also have created, somewhat based on your code, I have created this middle ground thing that we also might look at. That is doing its thing. It's not a codec, but it works how you would expect. Anyway, next up. So that was this heads up. And after this, I guess we should start planning. So contributors, Tim, do you want to mention anything about our SIG's plans for, we can take that in between, for KubeCon?
We have meetings scheduled. We have a Birds of a Feather session, and we have, there's a bunch of other sort of SIG update meetings that are happening at KubeCon. I think the most important one is the Birds of the Feather and the Contributor Summit day. So that's like, we have a large section of time. I think, I was mentioning before you got here, Lucas, I think going into, we could start to have like an initial plan of things we want to talk about, but usually once you go into a BOF, you come out and you burn your plan that you originally had. So we can have ideas that we want to, like a straw man proposal of things, but after we go through and actually have a BOF session, we can actually discuss how we want to outline some of the execution items for the next year or so. We'll have high level things. I think it's best to have high level objectives for a year style planning, just generic statements that are like, make configuration better, get HA to GA, simple things like that. Because the more granular you get, the more you're lying to yourself at a year's time frame scale.
Yeah, so we might add some links here. I think that would make sense. But also repeat this KubeCon thing in next week we have a normal SIG meeting, right? So then also, so people here, if you're around, what's happening and when. Just want to make sure that. With regards to the doc, I now pasted here. I created a planning doc for last year. I think we executed fairly well on that. But now,
it's locked down, Lucas. You need to change sharing permissions.
Sorry?
Your doc's not accessible.
Oh, sorry. I literally just created it. Or a copy of the 2000. Now it should be. Okay.
To intercept a little here, do you guys think that it's a good idea to create a survey? I can work on that, but
yes.
Yeah, for 113.
I was thinking about that like a couple of weeks ago, and then I wrote it down on my to-do list. Haven't gotten to it yet, but yes, if there's someone else that could like at least collect the doc with what we would like, ideally, not to put any more pressure on everyone here, but ideally this survey would be done by the blog post. So weekend, because that was what I planned, but then I didn't get around to it when writing the blog post. So yes.
So I'm gonna start writing the the survey tonight, and hopefully we can merge it like on Saturday or something like that.
Yeah, I just need a link. Like I just need a link to it. So,
Yeah, we'll do a Google Sheet. We should set up a Google Sheet survey. The CNCFs. Well, I don't know. We'll have to figure out how to do it. How we want to do that. Talk with George and Paris.
I mean, there's bureaucracy around the official way. We can do it privately. Okay, we can decide next week, I guess, on this.
yeah, I think. Yeah, cool. But we should sync with George and Paris. They are the ones that are. So, for example, we could use a community account or something, then get from them the data afterwards, but not own the survey. Like, I don't know. Anyway, that's a really thanks for bringing that up. I would have forgot it. Definitely. So, but with this 2019 roadmap, I'm gonna start removing things that we've done soonish after we have 113 out. And then we can on a higher level see just brain dump stuff in there. And from this raw document, we can create something more user-friendly or contributor-friendly. Does that make sense?
Are there other topics folks want to discuss today? I don't really have. The agenda's getting kind of sparse now.
Yes. If we don't have anything else right now, I wanted to discuss this issue. So that I linked here about the secrets and AJ and all the stuff. What are the things we hate the least, and how to try to execute and converge something.
So there's a couple of different options. Like Fabrizio and I have talked about different ones. And I see there's a lot more now. There are. I don't have strong opinions other than what we currently do today is non-ideal. So the one idea that I had was just to use a token that was only generated on an init time. And then, it could be either time-based too as well. And then that token could be used to decrypt. You would encrypt and store on cluster, and only with that token could you decrypt. So it's a shared secret. Just like Bootstrap tokens, and then, but it would only exist from the init command line. After that point in time, after a timeout cycle, it would no longer be valid, and a person could decrypt the secrets. So you'd only have a period of time from when you do the initial join. That has problems, right? And then there's the other option where Fabrizio had mentioned wanting to have a job that has super privileges that can go to the other machine and then transmit the data from machine A to machine B. I don't know what other proposals were listed there too as well.
I can explain my proposal quickly here. Basically, I said I made a little project to make a proof of concept out of this. It's but the idea here is to turn like kubeadm into a listening server that can pretty much transmit certificates for a period of time, and the other side can client into this server and pretty much use TCP with everything being encrypted with whatever algorithm we choose. I choose one of the best, to my understanding currently. The problem with that is, of course, we turn kubeadm into a server/client for a period of time. It's like extra boilerplate. The good thing about this is that there is a single source of truth. basically the certs transfer from one disk to another over TCP. And we don't have to store them intermediately into the cluster. Yeah, so that's pretty much it.
So the one issue that I worry about with that approach is that we're adding an additional requirement for firewall config to enable that to work. The other thing that I wonder is since it's basically giving, you know, a certain level of root access to the machine that server is running on to be able to transfer those certs, would we be better served by having kind of like a bootstrap token that has higher permission support and can just kind of exec a pod on the host and kind of exfiltrate the secrets that way instead?
That's kind of exactly what Fabrizio's proposal does.
Okay.
Yeah, and what I've been thinking about earlier and writing proposals like years ago has been about having, the first thing is that do we want a token to be do we want some kind of token to be able to connect as a master to the cluster? That is the first question we should ask ourselves. Do the end user need a token or a private key to add the master? Where do we stand on that one?
I would think yes. Like the shared private key or shared token, I think, is a useful thing that requires special permissions. You'd only be the person who did the original init would have that shared access credential.
Okay, right. Because that is one of the things when I was discussing with the whole team, and like, because if we do the token, that a token can add the master, that token, however strong it is the like weakest spot of the cluster, basically. So like if we let any user connect with that token or expose any like vector with a token, that is how secure our cluster is going to be for that period of time we're doing bootstrapping, which is fine, I guess. But like just having that expectation to the user needs to be communicated very clearly, I think.
I think
this is the root.
Yeah, I think we could also have like a revoke. You know, like if we're going to say like when you're doing control plane additions, like you do init and then you have the extra special token either outputted as init or you have a separate command line that gives you that token for other control plane nodes to join, but then having a symmetric separate revoke command, so that way like it's part of the staged flow of how you do stand up, so it's as minimal of a window as possible.
Yeah.
What I was thinking is that I totally agree that this extra power should be time limited. And what I was thinking about is it possible to link this extra power, so the access to the cluster certificate, to the bootstrap token? So I say it in another way. It is possible to define a group, a kind of attribute for a special token, so I can create, please give me a bootstrap token that allows me to fetch cluster attributes, and then this token dies like any other token.
I talked with Moyer about this, and he was pretty against the idea of using a bootstrap token because it's globally visible typically to other things. So if you compromised any portion of the control plane, you could have access to that token. The reason why I sort of, I think I originally had written my first idea as using some type of bootstrap token, but Moyer kind of poo-pooed that idea when I talked to him about it.
So could we just require kind of a pre-existing kube config to handle the privileged actions for control plane join? And that could either be kind of the admin kube config or another one that's kind of generated with a special service account with kind of admin credentials.
Well, the problem is like you need something to create that kube config. So the whole premise is that we want to get rid of the extra copying steps and only just provide, like when I do a control plane join, a minimal amount of data so to make it easier for automation and users.
And we also have to copy the admin config itself, like to the new control plane nodes.
Right, but that's something that the orchestrator can kind of handle as well. And it would limit kind of the current copying that we're doing down to just kind of one secret or one file.
But we still have to write the instructions of how to set up SSH with SCP, stuff like that.
Oh, yeah,
One of
please
One
go
of the
ahead.
idea of having something, how about having the operator accept the new master in, right? So like we just go do the regular token thing, but the trust is extended only because you accepted that new master in, like a kubeadm master list, master invite, or some mechanism like that, where you just allow them the new token that has been generated in when that new master has proposed it. Sort of like the CSR model.
So what I've been thinking about is that, so we have the CA keys, we have kind of 3 different CA keys, and that's the tricky part. I've been tinkering with the idea of doing everything via the CSR API, and hence have, like, whether it's a bootstrap token, yes, it's stored in a cluster, but if you have such high privileges, so you can view secrets in the kube system namespace, you're kind of dead anyway. I don't know. Like it's yes, but like so either a bootstrap token or like a kube config, like you said, Jason, is really cool. And then the problem is, I don't know if the CSR API supports. I don't think it does today. It doesn't support multiple CAs. Still, I don't know. Do we want to like transfer the CA key from master A to master B? Because we can't do that with the CSR API. With the CSR API, we could, like, but we could generate all the stuff that's needed, because we go ahead and post the thing and approve it ourselves, and the signer will kick in and give us the thing.
I like having a separate step. Like you do kubeadm init on a single node, then a kubeadm alpha something, right? Like the alpha something does the initial, could do the initial token creation and store it as secrets, right? And encrypted secrets that can only be decrypted with the token, right? So that way it's on the cluster temporarily, and the token is time-based too. So as soon as the token expires, you can no longer decrypt the secrets. So after a period of time, then you have a window of opportunity to decrypt that secret, and otherwise it's just rando data on your cluster for a period of time afterwards.
I don't understand the mechanic there. Is it like the secrets are they going to be deleted with the expiration of the token itself?
You could have an owner ref there, so that way when the token expires or gets deleted, that those secrets get deleted as well, garbage collected. And
also in terms of like the Kubernetes security team, for instance, do you think that they are going to approve this? Like, hey, you are doing this, it's okay. Or are they going to say like, no, this is completely wrong?
Well, I don't know. They have a tendency to live in tinfoil hat land. So there's going to be some level of compromise between user experience and security vulnerabilities, because like technically nothing is secure, right? The more you get down to it. So it's just a compromise of where we want to live with and how long. What's the time window for that that potential exploit?
The bootstrap token itself is already like a compromise, because I mean it prints out on the screen, someone can see it, copy paste it, So that's like already a compromise for the greater good of the user experience. So in terms of like roadmap for this, do you guys think that we should collect more ideas? I mean, I don't think we have that many options, to be honest.
I think we should write down a KEP with like the ideas that we've proposed. And we should definitely loop in the auth team to review said KEP. But this is definitely KEP worthy type of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And this needs to be started in a Google Doc because there's so many changes from various people. So needed to be done in a collaborative manner initially.
Okay. I guess we can start on the Google Doc probably right after the release. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this particular one we could probably wait till, because everyone will be at KubeCon and we can poke SIGAuth folks directly there, and maybe we can just copy paste some of the ideas into that doc and talk with them during the BOF session.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
On another note, Fabrizio, so what's the state, just quickly, what's the state of the reconfigure your cluster thing?
Oh,
That KEP.
it is basically blocked because there is no consensus yet.
I'm pretty opposed to the idea.
Yeah. I'm still of the idea that kubeadm should be the owner of some artifact like the static pod manifest, the certificates, and some config map in the cluster. And being the owner of these those artifacts, it should kind of support the change on those artifacts. This is the rationale behind.
Yeah, so if I just say my 2 cents, well, the user can already reconfigure the cluster on a real upgrade. When going from 112 to 113, they can reconfigure stuff. So, and we have no validation today. Can they change the service subnet? Yes. That will break the cluster? Yes. We should disallow such changes. And when we create this logic to disallow these changes that we know are dangerous, we also set lay the groundwork for a runtime reconfiguration, because then you can just say reconfigure with this spec. So then we already have all the pieces there.
I think the behavior of reconf falls squarely into like the cluster API controllers, right? Because like in order for you to do a full reconf, you need a controller, right? And I don't really want to get into that space from kubeadm's perspective. Like a controller that, as long as somebody can read the conf and see the delta for the configuration file, that controller can be a part of cluster API or a part of anything else, but it should be separate, right?
So like I think the point is, okay, the user has changed the configuration. Now I need to apply these changes to the cluster, because cluster API is not going to do that. It's not going to go and reconfigure the API server. So once the cluster API controller has detected this change, this desire to change something from the user, it actually says to kubeadm, apply these changes, and kubeadm goes down and modifies the static pod. I think that's
That's exactly what cluster API does. I mean, the cluster API provider implementation can do that. Like, there's nothing that.
But kubeadm has to be able to do the reconfiguration.
It's the same thing as applying something, right? How is that different than like like you mentioned before, that reconfiguration is like an upgrade.
Yes, but I think Fabrizio's point is just to streamline some of these. Like, if the version is the same, we don't need to do all the stuff that we're doing now, and make it a bit cleaner and apply validation. I think that's basically the point. So it's just like, okay, we don't need to do this because we're not actually upgrading, we're just reconfiguring. And then we also check for stuff.
Speaking
But,
of Cluster API, we're running into the Cluster API meeting currently.
All right.
Oh yeah, we have to
Sorry.
drop. So,
Hmm.
all right. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.
Talk to you next week.